Hello, I'm Dr. Lenore Walker, and this is a roundtable discussion that we're going to have for the next hour, brought to you by the COVID IPV Task Force and the Task Force on International, I always get this name, whole person approaches to psychotherapy. We're very pleased to be with you. We're mostly psychologists, but not all, but all concerned about our mental health during COVID. And APA, the American Psychological Association, in the larger COVID task force, is our support group. So we're very pleased. We come every Thursday from 12 to 1 Eastern time, and we're an international group. Let me introduce a few of the people to you who are on right now, whose faces you can see, although we have others who will be in the background, who's eating lunch or jumping on right after a client. So you'll see different people, or you'll hear different people. And as you know, we're on two wonderful Facebook pages. One is the Facebook page for the International Whole Person Approaches to Therapy, and one is the COVID IPV Facebook page. So go to any of them. Not only can you see us streaming live, but we'll also be recorded there for you to see. So today, at the moment, you can see Dr. Marilyn Safer, who is coming to us from Haifa, Israel. And you can see Dr. Eleanor Partis, who is coming to us from the Tel Aviv area in Israel. We also have Dr. Patricia Villavicencio, who is coming to us from Madrid. Dr. Giselle Gaviria, who is here in Fort Lauderdale, where I am. And as I said, I'm Dr. Lenore Walker. And we have Dr. Eileen Serlin, who is the co-chair with me of this, and she is the chair of the International Whole Person Approaches to Therapy group. So we're a very varied international group, and as I said, you'll see some others jumping on as well. We have a fabulous discussant with us today, Ming Ho, who is going to be introduced right now by Dr. Serlin. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Eileen, and tell us all about what Ming Ho is going to talk to us about.
Good morning, everyone. Let's just say a little word about our group, International Whole Person Approaches. So what we tend to focus on our group, and we are international, is really kind of experiential methods to work with trauma. So we work with mindfulness, we work with movement, we especially work with the arts, because trauma is in the body and trauma often can't be expressed in normal verbal language. So there are all kinds of ways from the arts to help work with trauma. And Ping Ho has developed a marvelous new area at UCLA called Arts and Healing, where they have all kinds of trainings and resources to work with individuals, families, children, communities, using music, art, community events. And she's been part of our task force since the beginning, and she's going to share with us today some of what her group has been doing. So thank you, Ping, for joining us. My friend and colleague from Los Angeles, Ping Ho.
Thank you so much. I'm going to share my screen and play from the start. Okay. So at UCLA Arts and Healing, we offer professional development and free public programs on how to offer socially and emotionally supportive experiences through the arts. So if the arts live over here and the world of therapy is here, we live in the land in the middle, which we call the land of prevention. So when we train people, we don't train them to cross over that boundary of therapy, where we're not training people to identify and treat disorders. However, people from the world of therapy can use our tools. So you may be wondering, why the arts? Right? So the arts offering nonverbal means of communication when speech is limited by stress, trauma, language, ability, or cultural practices. And under stress and trauma, the brain is busy protecting us from real or imagined threat, which interferes with our ability to speak. So I'm going to put my timer on so I can watch my time. Fortunately, we still have visual, auditory, and movement pathways still available to us. Active engagement in the arts involves a large part of the brain which crowds out stress, and rigorous studies of the arts delivered in therapeutic contexts shows consistent biological evidence of stress reduction. And this restores brain functions necessary for learning. Moreover, the arts are uniquely capable of enhancing positive emotions and not just reducing negative ones. We build agency and resilience in the discovery of something we can do to feel better. So, and finally, the arts are uniquely powerful at building social connection. Shared creative experiences offer an organic way to be truly seen, heard, and connected. Consequently, the arts have the unique ability to address problems rooted in disconnection, such as trauma, loneliness, intolerance, chronic pain, end of life care, and now social isolation. A systematic review of 37 rigorously designed studies of art, music, and dance movement, 73% of which were gold standard randomized controlled trials, found that 76% of the arts interventions significantly reduced stress, and 90% of the interventions delivered by creative arts therapists significantly reduced stress. Creative arts therapists are mental health professionals trained in using the arts as a process for achieving social, emotional, cognitive, and physical goals. So, how can we enhance the innate social emotional benefits of the arts informed by creative arts therapies practices? So, one way is to respond to creative expression with the language of non judgment. So go ahead and use the chat bar. I'm going to enable myself and enter there. What is the default verbal response to someone's work of art or performance? What do we typically say when someone shows us something that they've done? So just go ahead and put your thoughts in there. So lovely. Yes, we want to tell them it's beautiful. Great, right? Good job is another one, or I like it is another one. So, what might be some unintended consequences of a positive judgment? So, go ahead. It's not good. Oh, so there might be disagreement, and now we're disconnected. I can't draw. Self judgment. Yes, absolutely. Performance anxiety. Right, okay, sounding generic, meaningless. The comment after a while becomes meaningless. Also, what can happen is the reinforcement of seeking of external validation. So typically, if we do say some things like, it's lovely, I like it, it's beautiful, it's great, good job, what is the typical answer we may get back from the person who shared with us? Not really. Okay, there could be disagreement, yes, and disconnection. What is it? Someone says, oh, that's really pretty. Two simple words. Thank you. Yes. And unfortunately, we miss an opportunity to learn about someone's inner world if we try to interpret what we see. So, Erica, art therapist Erica Curtis, and I actually worked with a group of fourth grade students in an after school program. And this is the prompt that we gave them. Right. One girl drew, oh, I guess I should read it in case there's anybody who is has difficulty with sight. Draw any kind of plant. What's it saying? What does it need? What helpful character could you add? And then what is that character saying? So this is what the little girl drew. Something like this, it would be quite easy to look at this image and assume all is well. What were the flowers saying, though? So this is a rendering of what I saw. They had had a lockdown that day and didn't feel safe. They needed a house to feel better. Their helpful creature was saying, you're okay now. So what is a non-judgmental way to invite engagement, dialogue, and connection? We can literally say what we see or notice so others feel truly seen and heard. I see a lot of colors over here. I wonder if you can tell me about that. I see a smile or a frown. I wonder how you're feeling, instead of saying, you look happy or you look sad. So it's also helpful to remark on strengths we want to encourage. For example, if you reinforcing effort, I noticed you worked hard to finish this project. I wonder how that makes you feel. The I wonder is a way to encourage more dialogue. For encouraging problem solving, independence, and decision making, I noticed you figured out how to solve that problem. I wonder what you're going to do next. By being specific about what we see or notice, people feel truly seen and heard. In addition to non-judgmental practices, we use synchrony to affirm one another. Synchrony can be mirroring, as in eye contact, singing the same notes, or doing the same movements. It can also be echoing, as in call and response in the drumming world. And it can be building on one another's ideas, as in the yes and approach in the theater world. Synchrony is a metaphor for empathy because it says, I see you and I hear you. We work in a circle to facilitate synchrony, and research on synchrony in rhythm and movement shows that it evokes connection, compassion, and altruistic behavior. It's also rewarding to the brain. So being in sync activates the same part of the brain that responds to a monetary reward. We're actually hardwired to want to be in sync with each other. Subjects are more helpful towards those being treated unfairly and are more helpful in picking up pencils dropped deliberately when they've had an in sync versus an out of sync experience with the other person. So in addition to non-judgmental language and synchrony, we encourage reflection and sharing to help participants feel seen, heard, and connected. So research has shown that the addition of reflection and self-disclosure in art forms as diverse as drumming and writing results in greater biological and psychological indicators of stress reduction. Anecdotally, one school counselor who we trained in our Beat the Odds drumming program intentionally brought together students that did not ordinarily get along. When she incorporated the use of a single small frame drum into her groups, the students enjoyed sharing while drumming and stopped fighting with each other because you don't beat up a member of your group. And participants in our expressive writing programs will often shed tears when reading aloud what they've written or hearing what someone else has written. They may report a trauma that has never been shared before, only to discover that others in the room have had the same experience or a similar one. In the space of an hour, a room full of strangers can become each other's closest confidants. So what are some simple ways to facilitate reflection? I thought we would do a couple of very simple experientials here, and then I will briefly summarize the kinds of ways in which we train others to do this work. A weather check-in. Okay, I forgot. So I'm using a pillow for a drum, and this is sunny. We're going to ask you how you're feeling. Sunny, windy, rainy, stormy, or snowy. So you can actually do this to the screen or your desk, or if you have a pillow or a book or something. So go ahead and join me. This, again, quick review: sunny, windy, rainy, stormy, and snowy. So go ahead and show me or show us in the camera. If you're feeling sunny, go ahead and join me in feeling sunny. Okay. If you're feeling windy, go ahead and show me that you're feeling windy. Okay, a little bit of each. If you're feeling rainy, show me that you're feeling rainy. Okay. If you're feeling stormy, show me that you're feeling stormy. Okay. And if you're feeling snowy, go ahead and show me that you're feeling snowy. So snow falls silently, and we put our hands silently on the drum, right? So this is a simple, non-threatening way for people to begin sharing how they feel. Another activity is if you have a blank piece of paper and a pen or pencil, and you can go ahead and unmute yourselves here if you wish. Well, maybe afterwards. So here's the prompt, very simple, quick prompt. With lines, images, or by manipulating your paper, show stress. I'll stop sharing for a moment. With lines, images, or by manipulating your paper, show stress. And we're not looking for Picassos here. Just whatever you want to do. There's no wrong way to express yourself creatively. And some people are very definitive. Some people take more time. Now, if you're done, take a look at what you've created and reflect on how it may reflect the way you handle stress. So just think about what you did and how it contained. And if you would like a little extra challenge, if you would like to transform your whatever you express yourself at in, if you would like to transform it in some way, you're welcome to do that also. Yes. And we tend to respond similarly to others, and then there are also differences. So let's take a moment. Would anyone like to share what they created and what they and their reflection on how it reflects how they respond to stress? Lenore.
I crumbled it up. So my stress was really more agitated.
And is
And
that
then I tried to transform it by being a little calmer, but also rubbing it instead of twisting it.
yes? And is that your experience of stress? Does it feel like a
I think it's right on.
Thank
I
you.
do. I tend to strike out first.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to share?
I'm just reading. Giselle writes, I was crumbling my mask up.
So there
She's
was
not
a
here. I was looking
similarity,
for how
right?
she transformed it. I don't see it though.
So that's a similarity between Lenore and Giselle. They crumbled,
That's
right?
that's why we
Interesting.
get along so well.
Interesting.
So Eleanor, would you like to share?
Yeah, I also crumbled, and
Ah,
I did it very with agitation. Lenore also, and then I went outside in order to, take some air.
Ah,
And by coincidence, there's music here, which I won't. I will mute myself, but I thought that music, sky, fresh air is how I unhook myself from getting hooked on stressful thoughts.
thank you. You had a spontaneous discovery of resilience. Yes. Okay. Anyone else like to share? Eileen.
Well, mine was just, I guess, slashing,
Hmm.
with a pressure. And then I made flowers, which I
Oh,
think beauty also in nature really does it for me.
yes. Research wise, that is true too.
Mm.
Yes, it can help us very much. Okay, well, in the interest of time, I'll move on. I would like to share a here. Let me. I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint. All right. So I'd actually like to share an anecdote about a woman who came to our program that we were offering on trauma. It was a four-part program. The woman came in looking very disheveled, very disheveled, and she looked homeless to me. She sat in a corner, and it was, and we were letting in people for free. So she sat in a corner, arms crossed, head down, legs crossed, didn't move the entire 2 hours. And I thought she was hating the experience. She was clearly having dissociating at the time. So at the end of the session, she went up to the instructor and said, I don't remember a thing you said. And the instructor said, well, you might remember more than you think you did. See what you remember in the morning. So the woman woke up in the morning and she actually called me and she said, wow, I did remember we did some Tai Chi like moves about things that we want to push away and things we want to bring to us. And I remembered I had the presence of mind to do my yoga poses, and I also had the presence of mind for the first time in my entire life to hang up on my abusive husband. So then, 2 weeks later, she came back, and she was trying to share her experience with the life experience with the group, and she couldn't speak. Another classic trauma symptom, and she was literally choking on her words and crying. No sound, just tears. So the instructor got down on her knees, got down to eye level, held her hands, and said, okay, just breathe. Now just make a sound like, ha, ha, ha. And so after a few minutes, she said, okay, she invited the participant to lead her in some arm movements, right? This is about staying present. It's about empathy, connection, because we're mirroring each other. So she did some arm movements, and the instructor, Carolyn Braddock, wonderful trauma expert, actually mirrored her. And then after a few minutes, she said, let's stand up and just walk around together. So they held hands, walked around, felt the ground under her feet. And then she sat down and was able to speak. And she told about how in her culture she was forced to marry her rapist, and she had a lifetime of rage, 2 children by this person. And as soon as she shared this, she called me the following week and said, "Uh-oh, I'm feeling feelings. What do I do?" So clearly, dissociation was her way of coping before, and now she's feeling feelings. So I asked her, "What makes you feel good?" And she said, "Listening to music." So I said, "Well, try listening to music." I don't think she came back to the next 2 sessions. However, 2 months later, she came back to a movement program we were offering, and you wouldn't have known it was the same woman. Hair done up nicely, looking at people, touching people, smiling, glowing. And I asked an expert in trauma if, how long does it usually take to achieve that kind of a result in a person in therapeutic setting? And she said about a year to build that trust. And I'm not saying that music is necessarily magic. I do think it's an underutilized, very powerful tool. However, most people have access to music, and this is an example of how a social emotional arts practice can sustainably support equity and inclusion in mental health. And so I would like to just show you briefly some examples of our signature programs that build these possibilities for all. So our Beat innovative training that's being implemented in a growing number of schools nationally is our evidence-based and trauma-informed program, Beat the Odds, social and emotional skill building delivered in a framework of drumming. This program integrates the power of group drumming and group counseling in an 8-session weekly program of 45 minutes each. The program builds the core strengths shown here. And our UCLA research has shown that Beat the Odds can reduce a spectrum of behavior problems in children. Its scripted curriculum enables sustainable delivery and does not require musical experience of the facilitator or participants, and it can be totally adapted to any age. Another popular training among educators and mental health professionals is called Social Emotional Arts on a Shoestring. It offers a menu of supportive art, movement, music, and writing activities that are scripted for ease and integrity of delivery to groups or individuals, even with no resources in the room. The program was designed to achieve the goals listed here, the outcomes of which, this is the menu, which I forgot to show earlier. Okay. And the program was designed to achieve the goals listed here. Create rapport and connection, evoke positive emotions and bolster resilience, manage stress and pain, strengthen a sense of creative versus ill self, facilitate communication, manage grief and loss. And the outcomes of these, we've been observing and documenting these outcomes at UCLA Medical Center. And finally, we offer, sorry, my trackpad, I've lost my mouse here. Okay, all right. All right, we offer a free monthly Hope series recorded for viewing afterwards to support the resilience of our global community, and we offer related workshops from our book, The Innovative Parent, which makes these practices accessible to parents and professionals as a public health resource. Right. So I want to thank you very much for your time. And that was, how long? Oh, a little over 15 minutes. Thank you.
I'm just enthralled, Ping. Just enthralled is sort of the word I'm thinking of, but just listening to how you've been able to put all of this together in an academic structure, which I just think is fabulous. Why we don't have more of this, both in the schools, but in our treatment work. I spent many years working with children in groups. And I just, not only your pictures of what's happening, but uh, we learn so much. I know Patricia has also been working with the young children who have been so traumatized. And instead of sitting there and trying to force them to talk verbally, but to get them involved with expressing and their feelings, but also doing something with them. It isn't just the expression that's necessary, but being the healing piece, I think, comes from the creation, using them to create and well, thank you for sharing it.
Well, thank you. Then one of the most encouraging things I've noticed over the years is that everyone brings their gifts to the table. So if we train a mental health professional, they bring their skills in processing. If we train an arts professional, they bring their skills in the arts. If we train after school providers for children, they bring their playfulness. You know, everybody brings, actors bring in, you know, just engagement and performance. And so there's everybody can do this, and I think we are so desperately in need of mental health tools, and with little access, and even the people who have access don't necessarily utilize what opportunities there are for them, possibly because of concerns about legal, cultural concerns about the use of therapy, financial concerns. There's also the possibility that the person who you randomly end up with isn't the right person to help you. So there's a lot of
Mhm.
barriers to the use of mental health tools.
You know, I'd like to say Ping and Lenore. Lenore, thank you for that. And I know you're interested in writing and expressive arts. I've been on a crusade much of my life, which is why I'm so eager to see Ping, to say that these are so accessible and so powerful, and why are they not used more? One of the things that I really like about what Ping is doing is that, as you said, to collaborate with the medical school, to evidence. And
Mhm.
what is kind of silly is that we can see the change. It's obvious in front of us, but we need to document, and we need to write more articles, and we need to get more students submitting to scholarly journals. And then finally, but there's been a long history, and I come as a dance therapist, so it is on the therapeutic side that the expressive arts have been thought to be mere expression or acting out. So what you need, the training that she's talking about is establishing containment, learning how to not, trigger things, learning how to work with it is part of the training. But that's only because the impact is so powerful that you need to know what you're doing when you work with it. But on the other hand, in so many countries around the world, the arts are just part of everyday life, community building, singing together, drumming together. And part of it is in this culture, we've lost so much of that. And I think that's partly why we get acting out in inappropriate contexts for children, for adolescents, violence and so forth. But if you can learn to pound a drum and then make it quieter and quieter and regulate that anger and aggression, you're much better off than with no avenues for expression. So, this gets worked in with bullying in the schools. I've seen these programs really help, but it's not just children, learn to express in an
Right.
appropriate way. And then, as you say, take the act of creating is transformative. It gives you agency. It gives you some sense of control. It gives you some sense of being seen and heard. All of those things which are so healing. So anyway.
Giselle, I want to suggest that we're redoing our empowerment manual, our step manual. And I want to suggest that we put in each of the sections that we're working on, that we put in some creative arts exercises along with some of our other therapy exercises.
I was actually going to mention, I hold a lot of groups in substance use, and some of these activities I would like to engage, because you really do see a different side of the individuals and not understanding where they're at in their own recovery and so forth and so on, maybe even going through an obstacle in their own addiction. And it's pretty intriguing to see the growth, the before and after of a couple of these dance, music, and painting classes that I sometimes do. And it's really amazing. And thank you so much for talking. I can't wait. If there's a training, I'd be there. I'll be there.
Yes, we
There's
have lots of
also some conferences
too.
coming up, summit conferences, trainings, virtual trainings, resources that you should say that there's a film library, videos. You can access a lot without
And
having to
some
be
of our
there in
programs
person.
are free too. So we want there to be no barriers to people.
And I would love to. I would love to. You know that I'll be there. I'm just letting everybody know that I'll be there.
Yeah, me too.
If I don't show up, you know where I'm at.
I'm definitely
I
touched
say
and
that
honored.
Eleanor, I believe Eleanor, one of the reasons I
I'm asking Ping if she could give us a website or
Yes.
email addresses so that we can hook into these things. So,
Yes, I just put it in the chat bar.
okay.
Lovely.
Yeah. And I can put, you can sign up to receive our newsletter too. I can go back to that one slide. So if you
I
go to-
actually have been forwarding all your
Oh,
material.
great. Wonderful.
The whole person group has it in our resource bank. We have really all year we've been collecting whatever this group has been sending out. So that's part of what we've been collecting.
So I actually,
We can send you that too.
I predict that the arts will be the next major healing practice to be adopted by the public for two reasons. One is their exceptional ability to address these intractable public health problems that nothing else seems to be able to address. I mentioned it earlier, I'll re-mention it: trauma, loneliness, intolerance, chronic pain, end of life care, and social distancing. These are all things that the arts can address. And the other thing is that we're all creative beings at our core. So I don't think this is going to be a passing fad. I think that once it takes root, it will be here to stay. And the difference now between when, like Eileen, I'm sure you remember what it was like in those desert years when you mentioned the arts and healing, and people look
Oh,
at you
I can't do that. I'm not creative.
How do you do what? How do you do that? Now at
Can't
least
draw a straight line. Please don't
Yeah.
ask me.
at least the phrase art therapy, right, is something that most people have heard of. And now the difference, because when I first started this, put a toe in the water back in 2004, nothing was happening on the UCLA campus that was not siloed in individual departments. And nothing was happening in the community. So we were the sole provider of any sort of workshops. And then over time, it started becoming available. And then I saw that people really wanted training. So it's been a journey, a glorious journey in evolution to learn and from all the different people that we've showcased as instructors in the past, and to see the landscape change, to see the demand for this service and the recognition of the value of it. Eileen, go ahead.
But I was just going to say, I taught at UCLA 1981 to 1984 in the dance therapy.
Yes.
But that was siloed. It was siloed in a wonderful place called World Arts and Culture. But that had nothing to do. We had student interns at the Neuropsych Institute and in various places. I used to drive out and supervise the interns. But it really, what you're doing is cross campus. It's interdisciplinary, which is really where it needs to go. The creative arts therapies are struggling for validation and recognition. But what I really like, first of all, is that what you're doing is reaching the whole community. It's not therapy based. It's not in a clinical setting. It doesn't evoke all the things that clinical framework does. It's what people do. They sing and dance together and observe the seasons and the rituals. So you're bringing that part back, and especially the community part that siloed professions can't reach the way you are.
Yes.
I think it's really interesting that as someone who really spent a lot of time in academia training, it was very difficult for us to move outside the ability to just train with lectures. And then, okay, we could use PowerPoint to illustrate a little bit. And what I tried to do with some of our forensic work was to take people right into the courtroom. And then when we started getting virtual learning, we designed a Second Life courtroom so that we could really get people to see what the real life was besides what was written in a textbook, which often you need the basics, but once you have it, it's not enough to get out there. But there's always a push and a resistance in academia
Yes.
to move away from that lecture mode.
Yes.
And that's one of the reasons why I love these roundtables so much, because they're informal. We're not sticking to a script all the time. Yes, we have basics that kind of bring us all to the same point, but then we can talk about it and bring our experiences. And I think that's really important. I guess we call it applied psychology, right?
Can I put Eleanor on the spot? I just want to say that one of the reasons I was so attracted to the trauma centers that Eleanor, her family works in Israel is because they use a lot of the arts and all kinds of modalities. I don't, maybe you want to say something about a photography workshops and cooking together and all kinds of normalizing activities together and not focusing on trauma and pathologies, but really just bringing people together in a healthy way. I think you're muted, Eleanor. Yeah. Just tell us a little bit about how you use these in your programs there.
No, we can't hear you.
Something wrong with the sound.
Sometimes when that happens, you might have to log in again. Let's see.
While she's doing that, I just want to tell
You're
you,
doing it in a car, which makes me nervous.
I tried,
He's parked.
when I was supervising,
She parked.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Just a second. Sorry. Okay. I hope you will be.
no,
Oh, a little louder.
It's just the volume. If you can speak more closely to the microphone, or yeah. Uh-oh. Oh, it might be a connection thing because she's going in and out, right?
no, we can't hear you.
No, we can't hear you. We can't hear you.
Oh dear.
Try coming back in.
I wanted to share when I was supervising students with beginning therapists, and sometimes I have the feeling that the therapist wasn't connecting with the client. I would ask them to role play their client and show me what happened, how the client was acting. And that was really quite meaningful to the students. All of a sudden, they were able to put themselves into the client's world. I mean, it helped them from being detached and made them more aware of what was going on in the client's thoughts, feelings, actions.
Absolutely. That's very good.
Absolutely. Can I try speaking? Can you
Yeah.
hear me?
Yay.
Okay. So first of all, thank you so much. It was really incredible to see, Ping, how you brought it all together. And I really, as Eileen said, I've really been appreciating your works all through COVID because fantastic resources. I agree with Eileen, coming from a place that we've already been working with the expressive arts in mainstream clinical training, right from 2000 and even before. I think we have a lot, neuroscience has brought many evidence for right brain to right brain. And, there's been so much evidence-based work done. So we really, I hope to believe also international, we're in a different space. I was intrigued by the way that you used it online. And I would love to hear more about the adaptations that you've been doing with the expressive arts online,
Yes.
tailored to meet the needs of COVID.
Yes. And I would also like to hear more about what you do at your center, because I know somebody in Israel, and I'm just wondering about putting you together, for example. So So yes, as soon as COVID hit, we converted everything to an online format, and I had known that we needed to go this direction for a while, and it just forced us to do it all at once. And we even took the most challenging one, which I had already converted, was our drumming program, because drumming is so deeply visceral. And I would have to say that's the only program where I feel that live would there's something I just cannot replicate this way. However, we can get close. I can play a track, and and everybody is muted, and that way, because of the sound, the difference in sound transmission time, it doesn't sound too chaotic, and then we can unmute ourselves when we're all rumbling, when we don't need to be in sync. Um, and I can show film clips of some activities that require being in person. However, I would say 90% of it, even with the drumming, I can effectively show in this kind of setting. And the other art forms, the writing is no problem. The visual art, people make their thing and they share it this way. So it really is, and movement is incredibly easy to share online. So we have discovered a huge international reach as a result. And I won't want to go back, because I don't want to lose that connection that we have. People have access. People have been looking at our programs for years and thinking they wish they could come to LA. They can't. It's not realistic. And so it's better for the environment. It's better, it's more sustainable for us. I was starting to feel like traveling was getting unsustainable. So I think it's just better all around. And I actually love the virtual environment. And when we teach our social emotional arts certificate program now, which is all virtual, we're teaching them literally how to deliver virtually. So when they come out, they can do virtual or in person. So it's a twofer for everybody.
Thanks.
You're welcome. And please, Eleanor, would you tell me a little bit about what you do at your center, and who are your teachers? And
Yeah, well, we work with I volunteer actually in the Israel Crisis Management Center. And we do work with mainly immigrants and trauma. So different age groups and those suffering from grief, and often the children, sometimes often from both the parents, also trauma injuries. So it's really finding ways. We use the creative arts not just to cross cultural boundaries and language barriers, but also it's, as you said, it's a way of creating a language, speaking the language of trauma, which is right brain, visual imagery, finding a way to build trust and break through isolation, enabling people to express themselves in their language. So we use nature, music, body, dance, lots of ritual,
yes.
and experiential. I think that's what you demonstrated, and and we do it also international. Also, around, I've been, all this year I've been doing it in, different places all around the world, thanks to COVID, actually, right as you said. Exactly, I really resonate with that.
Thank you. I would like to connect you with a couple of people. So I'll send you myself a note.
Pleasure. With pleasure.
I think COVID has opened up the whole world for all of us. It did bad things, but it certainly did some good things in terms of the connections of people who are working with healing and using all different methods of healing. We've got to use everything that we possibly can, because there's so much trauma in the world.
And it also, Lenore, remember we had a roundtable on cultural loss, and we had that Indian folk dancer from India.
Yes.
And we're now working with the Indian trauma psychologists in the collaborative group.
Exactly.
And we
Patricia,
respect the different cultural traditions, that my first job as a dance therapist was with inner city girls in New York. And we had record stores then. I took them to what, Sam Goody's, if anybody remembers. And they picked out Soul Train and their music, and they choreographed their dance. And they researched African batik, and they batiqued their own costumes in a, in a culturally appropriate way. So I was not coming in, sharing my music. So this way, it really helps people kind of dig into their own traditions, celebrate them, and recover things that have been lost we see these patterns of migration all over the world. We're all becoming homeless, many, and leaving homes and safe places and security net, safety nets, and how to sort of recreate those as we move around and make community events and so forth.
You just got to jump in, Patricia.
Yes, Patricia has your hand up.
Thank you, Bing, for your presentation. I really would love to join in and get your training
I look
anytime.
forward to meeting you.
And especially since I work with adults that have been abused and kids, any time of any kind of disorders, especially which I'm very concerned are teens that are having suicidal thoughts and self-injury and trauma behind. Anyways, and as anyone here that I've been trained by the best as Lenore and other specialists on trauma, and no one bring play or arts. And since I started working again with teens, and I went to a Swiss school in Lima, in Peru, and they made me play until I was 7. I started reading with 7 years old. And I play music, and not only the flute. And I know how to read the music, and did photography for, and I play sports. And that kind of school helped me to be the adult I am. And when I ask kids to draw a painting, and not painting, draw something, and they tell me they don't know, teens, they don't know how to draw. I get like, oh my God, how could you not know how to draw? Or yeah, it's difficult to play something else than flute here in Spain, depending on the part of Spain. The other parts in Madrid, only flutes. In the Mediterranean, they used to play other instruments. But since I want to go to what I want to say, that I'm starting to run. I will be starting to run a trauma group for kids that have been through trauma, any kind of trauma. And the manuals, trauma-focused therapy, which is the evidence-based #1 recommendations in the manuals, don't have any arts. So, and I will be doing some arts and movement with the depression group. I asked them the other day I started to show how was my week. And also I was very tired. So I did not say a word. I moved my body like, oh my God. And then I got better. And then I got, with more energy. And then everyone did. And some kids did like, and those words will not come in a written way, right? Yeah. How are you? So movement is something, writing will be something that I started last year, creative writing, and that's something that creative, not focusing on trauma. So thank you so much. It
Thank
gives
you for
us
sharing that.
a lot of hope.
I just want to add, one of the things I learned from that I didn't know about Patricia was when I went to visit her, every time we came into the car, she had on other music, new music. And I don't think we ever took a ride anywhere without having something relaxing and interesting, you know, and she's introduced me to so much music that I had no idea about. So that's how we cross-pollinate with one another.
Tricia, can I put you on the spot now and talk a little bit about body art? And show us your new body art. And we haven't talked about bodies and the role of the long traditions of body art in many cultures. Do you want to share with us your latest?
Yeah.
Oh, literally sharing with us. Wow.
Just saw this the other day, so I'm
Yes.
putting her.
Whoa.
Tricia,
I'm introduced.
Is that wash off?
No.
can you tell us a little bit
It's a real
about,
tattoo she got.
yeah,
Oh
can you
my
tell us a little
goodness.
bit
Yeah.
about
Tell
what
us the meaning of the
yes, the
symbols.
meaning for you?
Well, it's not a meaning. It's well, it has lots of meaning for me, but it's got in, the tattooer got inspired by a woman that lived in the 5th century, no, in the year 450, sorry,
Wow.
and in Peru, where I was born, and the area of Moche culture, and she was the ruler and the healer and the shaman. And in 2006, they found her, and my sisters and my kid, we went to visit that area, which happens to be the area where my grandmother was born, and my father was raised in that area, although my family were not Moches.
What
And
area was that?
Lambayeque, in the area of in the north. There are many archaeological structures there, very interesting. And they found this the body of this woman. She's called Dama de Cao, the Lady of Cao, like CAO, and these findings destroyed the theory that only men ruled and had a very strong position in their communities. She died when she was about between 20 and 25 years old after giving birth postpartum, and her body was found intact. And the skin, since Peru, the coast of Peru is very dry and it's desert. There's desert from up to the south, 2,000 and something kilometers, and dry weather. The body was preserved, and her mummy is there. So if you want to take a look, and since COVID has changed so much, and for everyone, and I got the chance to meet this person who is ancient tattooer, and so I talked to him and said, I know this lady, and I didn't have the idea to do this. So much daring, but since I want to remember that I need to take care of myself. Since last year, I've been in sick leave for 5 months for a tendinitis. I worked so much during the confinement and lockdown, and I almost broke my arm. And this is not mental health, but people said, no, you were controlling and so on. And I laughed, but it's not control. It's a lot of work. And they found injury in my spine, cervical, that never bothered me, but it might be responsible for that. And also I had a neuropathy after my chemotherapy. So on my right body, part of my body. So this will never bother me again since I have this. And
Wow.
it reminds me that I have to heal myself in order to heal others. And people, I finished. And here we are very close to each other, not that much since the COVID lockdown, but people touch me. And, let me see. And I felt like, oh, okay. No? Or no, it's Hina. No, because it breaks also my personality style. And it's interesting.
Definitely.
Oh, wonderful.
Real tattoo, and she
Yeah.
said it was painful.
Very painful.
Painful.
You're literally a walking work of art on which
Yes.
to create dialogue.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Very
So
I would love to share one other thing, which is the universality of all this. I was asked to speak recently to a conference of 1,000 people in Ukraine. It was a Ukrainian neurology conference of all things. So I shared our work and applications of music because they don't really have music therapy there. And at the very end, I took a risk of taking. All I had was a room. The only group I could see was a room full of maybe about 10 individuals. And so I had one person in that room say, pick someone, pick someone, pick someone to pass movement around. So one person would lead the movement, and then the others would mirror it. And I was not sure how this was going to go because the entire time when I was speaking, they were just sitting like this. And I thought, I hope this is not an overly tall order. Not only did they do the activity like everyone else does, they did it even bigger. The one guy that she picked was just all out. And I thought, you know what? This is just so universal. Everybody loves it. Everybody needs it. And that's what's so exciting about all this work. This crosses all.
Yes. I think we're going to have to wind up in a moment. And I'm wondering if anybody hasn't spoken. I know, Giselle, you're in the background. Any last comments on this? Yeah. Anyone who's...
I just want to thank you again. It was really a fascinating talk, and I want to register for the newsletter and see more about the various courses you're offering by long distance.
I've actually shared it to quite a few other groups that are also training in regards to trauma, as well as to our groups. That's what I was actually doing in the background, as I do a lot of the social media things. So I have been sending it out, as well as personally sending it out to some of my colleagues.
Oh,
So they can sign up. And I also put the website that you had recommended. I really do appreciate you bringing a new spotlight and just different things that we can do in this area. I really do.
We in our committee, the Whole Person Committee, are developing a set of toolkits. So it will include pings, it will include Eric's on Zoom fatigue, Eleanor's. So we're trying to find, not too short and not too long. That's the sort of the trick about how to do. We're not doing trainings. We can't do it in depth, but we can do little experiential kind of exercises. And this will be just part of, to be useful, to be practical, to help people really apply some of these things. So these will be part of the ones we are trying to collate them in our group.
I'll be forwarding a copy of the newsletter that came out this morning, or it's coming out today. because it has some opportunities for you all internationally. There's a free film series. There's a music study with chronic children with chronic pain or adolescents. So if you know anybody who wants to be involved, and then there's also an older adult series coming up on working art, movement, music, and rhythm for working with older adults.
And I'm
Sounds great.
I'm going to be contacting you. I'm working on a chapter that we hope will be on an APA book on existential humanistic. And they've asked me to write the one on expressive therapies and evidence-based. The whole point is to show evidence-based. So we hope that this will come up in an APA book where we'll actually have a chapter on it. So.
Eileen, thank you for being a leader in the field way before your time. I mean, just what, so thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Well,
Thank you
this
for,
is this has been just an outstanding roundtable. I want to wish everybody a very happy week. We will be back again next Thursday at the same time, 12 to 1, and look for our videos that are on Facebook so that you can see it. And for those of you who are not on Facebook yet, we're trying to get them up on a YouTube channel so that we can just have them really accessible for all of us whenever we want to go back and look at them. We've been, for one of the other articles that we've been writing, we've been looking at the number of people. They count how many people look at the videos, and we're up to over 800 hits on some of our more popular videos, which is amazing when you think about how many people actually would ever read a journal article and use
so, that's getting obsolete.
And I know somebody mentioned evidence-based trauma treatment, but the fact is those programs that are recommended are so inadequate that very few trauma therapists find them adequate enough. They have some very good materials and good information in them, but they leave out the whole issue of relationships. You know, so we can stop some of the more difficult symptoms using some CBT, but we really cannot heal trauma that way. We need a much broader approach. So I appreciate everybody's contributions today. And I look forward to seeing you. We're over time, so I look forward to seeing everybody again next week. Have a very positive, safe, happy week.
Thank you, Pam.
Thank you, Pam.